The air felt different that night. Not colder. Not warmer. Just heavier. Like it knew what was coming before I did. I remember standing there, fluffing the last couch pillow like it actually mattered. Like it would distract me from the silence settling in the room. It was quiet, but not peaceful. It was the kind of quiet that wraps around your shoulders and makes your heart race, even when nothing's happening. And then, I heard the door click. He walked in. Same face I'd seen 1,000 times. Same way he always pushed the door gently like he didn't want to wake a sleeping house. But something about the way he stood there, like his thoughts were dragging behind him, made my chest tighten. His eyes didn't meet mine right away. He walked past me slow, like he was thinking too loud to speak. Like he wanted to say something but didn't know if it would come out right. And suddenly, I was so aware of where we were. Just the two of us. In this living room. This ordinary space that had seen laughter and tears and silence. But never this. The couch. That damn couch. It used to be just a place we sat. A spot we shared takeout or leaned back with a drink after a long day. But that night, it became something else entirely. I didn't expect what happened. I didn't see it coming. And maybe that's what made it even more unforgettable. Because some moments don't scream their arrival. They slip in quietly, sit next to you, and change everything before you even realize you're not the same anymore. I could feel my pulse in my neck. My skin felt too tight, too aware. Every move I made felt loaded. I remember thinking, why now? Why tonight? But deep down, I think a part of me had been waiting for this exact moment. Waiting for the silence between us to crack open. Waiting for the tension we never talked about to finally show its face. Waiting to feel something real, even if it scared the hell out of me. And I wish I could tell you I stopped it. That I told him to go. That I turned off the lamp, walked up the stairs, and left everything untouched. But I didn't. Because something in me needed to know what it would feel like. To not run. To not pretend I wasn't curious. To not be the version of myself that always followed the rules and ignored the ache in her chest. No. That night, I stayed. I sat down beside him. Right there. On that couch. And before either of us said a word, we both knew something had already started. Something that couldn't be undone. Before we go any further, hit that subscribe button to stay close to stories like this one, only on Sheila Heart Tales. If you've ever felt the weight of a moment you couldn't take back, tell me in the comments. You're not alone here. He sat beside me. Close. Too close. But I didn't move. I didn't lean away. Didn't shift my weight to create that polite distance we usually kept. Instead, I stayed still, locked in that strange, charged silence that suddenly made the room feel smaller. His thigh brushed mine. A simple thing. A human thing. But it didn't feel simple. It felt deliberate. Or maybe it was the way my skin came alive the second it happened. That whisper of heat, even through the layers of fabric. I swallowed. Hard. Told myself not to read into it. But the silence between us wasn't the usual kind anymore. It had an edge. A weight. A rhythm. I could hear his breathing. Not loud, but deep. Controlled. Like someone trying too hard not to let something show. My hand was resting on my lap, fingers laced, trying to stay calm. But then he leaned forward, just slightly, and reached for the wine bottle on the table. His arm grazed mine. Just a brush. But my entire body reacted. I didn't flinch. Didn't lean back. I felt it. Every second of it. And I think he noticed. Because when he poured the wine and handed me the glass, his fingers didn't just hand it off. They lingered. He held the base a second too long. Long enough that our fingers touched. Pressed. My breath caught. Just for a moment. But I didn't pull away. I didn't want to. And that scared me more than anything. Because this wasn't some stranger. This wasn't a mistake in a dimly lit bar. This was him. The one I wasn't supposed to feel this way about. The one who was always just out of bounds. And yet, here we were. No one else home. No background noise to hide behind. No one checking in or walking past. Just us. And this couch. And the way his eyes finally turned to meet mine. There was a flicker in them. Not bold. Not forceful. Just a quiet asking. like he was searching for permission he hadn't even voiced yet. I looked away, not because I wanted to stop it, but because I didn't trust what my face might show. He leaned back, sipped his wine, and I sat there, glass in hand, heart pounding. I could feel the heat from his body next to mine. I could feel my own skin waking up, tingling like it remembered something I hadn't yet lived. I don't even remember what show we pretended to watch. The TV was on, but it was just noise. Static compared to what was happening in that small space between us. At one point, he laughed softly at something on the screen. And that laugh, it sent a shiver through me. Because it was real. Unfiltered. Like he'd forgotten to hold back. And I wondered, was I imagining all of this? Was it just me caught in this storm of thoughts and nerves and need? But then his knee nudged mine. Gently. Intentionally. Not a mistake. Not this time. He didn't say a word. Just sipped again, eyes forward, like we hadn't just crossed a line. But I felt it. And I knew he did too. My fingers clutched the stem of the glass tighter. Not from fear. From restraint. Because something was starting. Something slow. Unspoken. Dangerous. And the worst part? I didn't want to stop it. I wanted to see where it would go. Even if I knew exactly how close we were to something neither of us could come back from. I don't know how long we sat there pretending to watch the screen. The sounds kept changing, some sitcom laughter, a flash of music, the low hum of commercials. But none of it mattered. Because the real noise was the silence between us. I could feel the words building in my throat. But I didn't want to break the moment. Didn't want to hear what might come out. Because once you name something, you can't unname it. Still, I turned my head, looked at him, really looked at him, and quietly said, "You're quiet tonight." My voice barely made it out. It sounded smaller than I meant it to, like I was trying to hold it back even as I let it go. He blinked. Didn't answer right away, but I could see the shift in his eyes. Stormy. That's the only word for it. There was something behind them, guilt, longing, maybe both. He finally said, "There is something." My stomach dropped. Not from fear. From knowing. Knowing that whatever came next would change things. He took a breath, long and heavy. I've been trying to shake it, but I can't. He wasn't looking at me. His gaze stayed fixed on the floor, on his hands, on anything but my eyes. But I saw the way his shoulders tensed. The way his leg bounced once, then stopped. "What is it?" I asked gently. "Talk to me." He exhaled through his nose. Then his jaw clenched tight. And that's when he said it. "It's not just about me. It's about us." That word, us. It hit harder than I expected. Like a truth we hadn't dared to say out loud until now. He looked up, finally. And his eyes, they didn't blink. It's about what we pretend not to feel. Silence again. The kind that hurts. The kind that holds a mirror up and dares you to look. I didn't respond. Not yet. Because I didn't know how to pretend anymore either. We'd been orbiting each other for months. Little glances that lasted too long. Conversations that stopped just before they got too real. Moments like this one. That came close to crossing the line but never fully did. Until now. He leaned forward, setting his glass down on the table, his hands resting on his knees. "I don't want to lie to myself anymore," he said, voice low. "And I don't want to lie to you either." There was something in his tone. Not desperation. But clarity. Like he'd wrestled with this in private for far too long. "What do you mean?" I asked, though part of me already knew. He shook his head, like the words were tangled. Like he didn't want to scare me with the truth, but couldn't keep it in either. "I feel it every time I'm near you," he said. "This pull. This heat. It's like I'm trying to stay still while something in me is already moving toward you." My breath caught. Because that's exactly how it felt. I looked down, heart hammering in my chest. He continued, softer now. "I know I'm not supposed to say any of this. I know what this looks like. But I can't keep pretending like it doesn't matter. Like you don't matter." Those last words. They did something to me. Because for so long I'd felt invisible. Unnoticed. Like I was always the one giving, never being seen in return. But now here he was. Seeing me. Naming something I had buried so deep I forgot it had a name. "I don't want to ruin anything," he added. I just needed to be honest. Even if you hate me for it. I looked up at him. And the way he looked back. It wasn't lust. It wasn't impulse. It was ache. Real. Raw. Human. I should have said something. Anything. But instead, I just nodded. Because when you've been starved of being understood, even the smallest truth feels like air returning to your lungs. He leaned back slowly. Still close. Still warm. And we sat in that moment together. No more pretending. No more avoiding. Just two people, suspended in the stillness of everything unspoken finally being said. And deep down, I think we both knew. We were only just getting started. I didn't expect his words. Not like that. Not with that look. He wasn't teasing. He wasn't testing me. He wasn't playing some careless game. He was serious. Almost scared. His eyes dropped to the floor again, fingers lightly tapping against his knee, like he was trying to summon the right rhythm to say something that had no easy beat. I've had thoughts, he said finally. His voice was quieter now. Low. Careful. Like he didn't want to say too much too fast. Thoughts? I asked, though part of me already knew what he meant. He nodded once. Slow. Measured. Ones I never thought I'd say out loud. The words hung there, bare, exposed. They weren't heavy, but they were real. He ran his palm across his thigh and let out a breath. Then he looked up, just briefly, and said, But lately, I wonder if you've had them too. That moment felt like a thread being pulled. Gentle, but unraveling something deep. I swallowed hard. Thoughts about us? I asked. I barely heard myself. It didn't feel like my voice. He nodded again. Yes. A pause. And about someone else being there too. I blinked. Someone else. He didn't flinch. Didn't hesitate now. Watching, he said softly. Maybe even joining. Everything in the room slowed. Or maybe it was me. I felt frozen in place, like time paused to give me room to feel everything at once. I didn't move. Didn't speak. Because how do you respond to something like that? He wasn't being crude. He wasn't pushing. If anything, he looked more vulnerable than ever. Like he'd finally said the thing that had been sitting in the back of his mind for far too long. And for some reason, I didn't feel offended. I didn't feel disgusted. I felt seen. My heart pounded harder than it had all night. And I asked the question that had already formed in my throat before my lips caught up. A woman. He looked at me steady now. No fear. Just honesty. He nodded again. Only if it's someone you want, he said. Only if it's your choice. I would never. I mean, this wouldn't be about just me. It never was. I just stared at him. And for a few long seconds, I felt my body betraying the part of me that wanted to be shocked. But the truth is, I wasn't. Because somewhere, in the quiet corners of my mind, in the moments I never told anyone about, in the dreams I brushed off in the morning light, I'd wondered too. Not just about him. Not just about us. But about more. Not for the thrill. Not for rebellion. But for connection. For the chance to feel something layered and wild and deeply human. For the chance to expand what we were, without destroying it. And in his voice, I didn't hear pressure. I heard an offering. He wasn't handing me something forbidden and asking me to swallow it whole. He was sharing something raw. And asking if I saw it too. I didn't answer him right away. Didn't rush to fill the space. Because this wasn't a conversation for impulse. It was one that required presence. I set my wine glass down gently, letting my fingers rest against the stem. I breathed. And though my lips hadn't moved, my eyes must have said enough. Because he smiled, just slightly. Like he knew I hadn't walked away. Like he could feel me, leaning in. Not toward danger, but toward truth. And just like that, the air between us wasn't heavy with silence anymore. It was alive. With possibility. With permission. With something we both knew we couldn't name yet, but would never be able to unfeel. My thoughts started racing. Fast. Disjointed. Loud. Was this a test? A trick? Some twisted way of getting me to reveal too much, too soon? Or was this something deeper? An honesty I wasn't ready for? I looked at him. And then looked away again. Not because I didn't want to see him, but because I wasn't ready to see myself. Because the second he said it, the second he let the words float into the space between us, something shifted in me. Not something dark. Something familiar. Something that had lived in the back of my mind for longer than I cared to admit. I didn't feel offended. Or ashamed. I felt exposed. Not by him, but by the truth of it. And that scared me. What if I liked it too much? What if I said yes, and couldn't ever go back to the person I was before? What if it changed how he saw me? What if it made me look weak? Or reckless? Or worse, desperate for something I should have outgrown by now? And then, a different voice inside whispered, what if it didn't? What if it made me feel alive? I closed my eyes. Just for a second. Long enough to gather the weight of what I was feeling. Because buried underneath all the panic and what-ifs was a quiet ache. A part of me that remembered every time I felt invisible. Every time I sat at dinners where no one asked how I really was. Every time I dressed up for someone who didn't even look up from their phone. Every moment I craved to be touched like I mattered. Not as a routine. Not out of obligation. But out of desire. Raw. Undeniable. Present. And this? This didn't feel like something dirty. It didn't feel like cheating or betrayal or madness. It felt like being seen in a way I hadn't been in years. I felt like I was standing at the edge of something. A cliff maybe. But not the kind you fall from. The kind you leap from, when you're tired of standing still. I bit my lip. Hard. Tried to swallow the heat building in my chest. Tried to talk myself out of what I already knew. But it was no use. Because the truth wasn't going to go away just because I was scared of it. I thought of all the versions of myself I'd buried. The playful one. The wild one. The curious one who used to wonder, what if, without apologizing for it? Where had she gone? And why was I so terrified to let her back in? I glanced over at him again. Still sitting there. Still quiet. Still watching me, not with pressure, but with patience. Like he understood I was somewhere between running and staying. And in that moment, I realized something. He hadn't asked me to decide right then. He hadn't demanded anything. He'd simply opened a door and left it up to me whether I wanted to walk through it. I looked down at my hands, resting on my lap. They were trembling. Not from fear, but from awareness. Because deep in my chest, a smaller, bolder part of me had already said yes. A whisper of a yes. A trembling, cautious, rebellious yes. But still yes. And I didn't know what that meant yet. Or where it would take me. But for the first time in a long time, I wasn't thinking about consequences. I was thinking about possibility. And how rare it is. To feel like you're right on the edge of something you can't quite name. But need to know. I sat there, still. No longer frozen. But anchored. In my body. In my truth. In the wild, pulsing edge of a decision I never thought I'd have to make. I looked at him. Really looked. And for the first time, I didn't just see him. I saw me. The woman I had become. The woman I had forgotten. The woman who had spent so many nights shrinking herself to fit inside the version of life everyone else expected from her. And suddenly, it hit me. This moment wasn't about him. It never really was. It was about me. What I had buried. What I had ignored. What I told myself I didn't deserve. Desire. Curiosity. Freedom. A kind of intimacy that wasn't tied to rules or roles or routine. This wasn't just about a couch. Or a suggestion. Or even the shared fantasy. It was about being awake in my own skin again. He was watching me. Still not speaking. Still giving me space. And in that silence, I felt something shift in me. I wasn't waiting anymore. I wasn't hoping he'd lead me there. Because wherever we were going, I was going to choose it. I was going to own it. So I turned my body toward him. Met his eyes, full, open, steady. And I said, clear as anything. If we do this, it's on my terms. His brows lifted slightly. I wasn't being pulled into someone else's world. I was building my own. And he was just the one who held the match. But I decided if we lit the fire. The next few days passed like a blur. But not the kind that fades or slips away. No, this was the kind of blur where everything sharpens inside you. Every conversation we had felt heavier, clearer. We weren't rushing. We weren't just flirting with the idea anymore. We were building something. Thoughtfully. Slowly. We talked more than we ever had. And not just about what might happen. But why? Why this had awakened something in both of us. Why we were drawn to the edge. Why the idea of sharing something intimate didn't feel like betrayal. It felt like evolution. He asked me what I wanted. Not just in the moment, but in the energy. What kind of presence made me feel safe? What kind of woman I could feel open with? And I told him honestly. No performance. No pretending. Just truth. And in return, he told me something I wasn't expecting. She's someone you've met before, he said softly. She's kind. Thoughtful. Curious. Safe. That word. Safe. It wasn't sexy. It wasn't daring. But it made everything inside me settle. Because I didn't want wild and reckless. I wanted real. I wanted to feel everything without questioning if I'd regret it in the morning. And the way he spoke about her. It wasn't possessive. It wasn't secretive. It was gentle. Like he knew how delicate this part of me was, and he was willing to hold it carefully. We didn't text much that week. But when we did, every message hummed with energy. A small smiley. A one-word check-in. Thinking about you. And it was enough to send my heart racing every time. I remember one night, after dinner, we sat in that same living room again. Same couch. Same lighting. But everything had changed. I was curled into the corner of the cushions, legs tucked underneath me, a book open but untouched in my lap. And then he leaned over, closer than close, and whispered, "Be home by 8. No questions. Just trust me." I didn't say anything. Just looked up at him. And nodded. Because in that moment, I felt it. The calm before something unforgettable. The breath before the plunge. My mind raced with what that could mean. Would she be there already? Would I be expected to act, to decide, to do something I wasn't ready for? But underneath those thoughts was something deeper. I wanted this. Not for him. Not for her. For me. I wanted to see what it felt like to stretch the walls of my life, just enough to breathe something new. So the hours passed, and my body knew something was coming before the clock even moved. Each tick of the second hand pulled me closer, not toward chaos, but toward curiosity. And at 7:47, I stood up. I walked to the mirror, looked at myself, really looked. Not to fix, not to perform, just to see the woman who had chosen this. Not out of rebellion, but out of readiness. And at 7:59, I turned the doorknob, heart racing, mind still, and stepped into whatever came next. The door clicked softly behind me, and everything inside me held still. The lights were low, not dim like hiding, warm, intentional. Golden candlelight flickered across the walls like they, too, were waiting for something sacred to unfold. Soft music floated through the space. Something melodic, slow. The kind that doesn't demand your attention. It invites it. And there, on that same couch where everything began, she was already sitting. Legs crossed. Back straight. Hands resting gently in her lap. She smiled the moment she saw me. Not wide. Not staged. Just soft. Open. Like she'd been told exactly who I was, and still chose to be there. There was no pressure in her expression. No expectation in her posture. Just presence. And that alone calmed something in me. I looked to him. He stood near the kitchen, watching, waiting. He didn't move. Didn't speak. Just met my gaze with a quiet steadiness, as if to say, "You're still in control." And I was. I could feel that. This wasn't something happening to me. This was something unfolding with me. I walked slowly toward the couch. Every step deliberate. Every breath carefully placed in my chest. When I sat down beside her, our knees barely touched. But it felt electric. She turned slightly toward me. Still smiling. Still calm. "Hi," she said. One word. And it disarmed me completely. "Hi," I whispered back. And for a second, the world outside that room disappeared. The calendar. The noise. the questions. Gone. All that remained was now. And now was quiet. Beautiful. Heavy with meaning. She didn't touch me right away. She waited. Watched. And when her fingers finally reached out, just brushing the back of my hand, I didn't pull away. I felt it. All of it. The way her skin warmed against mine. The way my pulse jumped so suddenly it almost startled me. The way her touch wasn't asking, it was offering. My breath hitched. He moved closer. Still silent. Still watching. But now his hand found the back of the couch, right behind me. Close. Protective. A quiet anchor in a sea of sensation. His eyes never left mine. And that was what did it. Not the candles. Not the music. Not even her touch. It was him. Watching me with no judgment. No jealousy. Only permission. Permission to feel. To explore. To unravel. There was no rush. No frenzy. Just breath. And skin. And the sound of my own heartbeat in my ears. I turned slightly, meeting her gaze fully now. And in her eyes, I saw nothing but patience. A quiet kind of knowing. A mirror reflecting something back at me I didn't know I was ready to see. She leaned in closer. Not demanding, just inviting. And I let her. Because for the first time in a long time, I wanted to say yes to myself. And somehow, in the softness of her hand, in the warmth of his presence just behind me, I felt safe. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. Words would have ruined it. Broken the fragile beauty of what was unfolding between us. Every breath, every glance, every tiny motion was deliberate. Like music we hadn't rehearsed, but somehow already knew the steps to. She touched my wrist. Barely. Just a soft drag of her fingers across my skin. And I swear I felt it in places I didn't know could feel. He was behind me. Close. Warm. I didn't hear him move, but I felt it. The way his hand came to rest on the back of my neck. His thumb drawing a slow, absent circle just beneath my hairline. It sent shivers across my scalp. Not fear. Something else. Something deeper. Like being read by touch. My chest rose with a breath I hadn't planned. And I let it out slow. Because everything was slow now. On purpose. Like we all knew this wasn't a race. It was a moment we wanted to live inside. Her hand moved up my arm, featherlight. No grab. No force. Just curiosity. Exploration. Care. My skin came alive beneath her fingers. Like it had been asleep and was finally remembering how to feel. And him. He stayed close. Grounding me. Not leading. Not demanding. Just there. His other hand came around slowly, brushing my hip. Just resting. Solid. Warm. It was overwhelming and grounding at the same time. Like I was being seen from two angles. Held. And free. I didn't know that was possible before. To be completely surrendered and completely sovereign. All at once. My eyes fluttered shut. Not from nerves. From presence. Because the moment demanded it. Because I didn't want to miss how it felt from the inside. Every part of me buzzed with sensation. Not loud. Not chaotic. But rich. Layered. Real. I could feel her breath near my cheek now. Feel his hand still behind me, his body creating warmth I didn't want to leave. And in that moment, I wasn't afraid anymore. I wasn't confused. I wasn't second-guessing or shrinking or questioning my worth. I was wanted. Fully. Honestly. Without condition or choreography. Not because I fit someone's fantasy, but because I had chosen to live inside it. There was power in that. And softness. And surrender. And joy I hadn't let myself feel in years. And as I breathed through it, letting their hands find me, letting my hands find them, letting my body follow what it knew without needing permission, I realized something that startled me more than anything else that night. I deserved this. Not just the experience, but the connection, the reverence, the way I was being looked at like I mattered. Because I did. Right here. Right now. I mattered. Afterwards, we didn't rush to move. No one reached for their phone. No one looked away. No one tried to erase what just happened by filling the silence with noise. She rested her head on my shoulder. A small, trusting weight. Comforting. His hand found mine and laced his fingers through them, slow, sure. Like anchoring us both back to the here and now. There was something sacred in that quiet. Something unspoken but deeply understood. I could feel his breath warm against my neck. And I let my head lean a little closer to his. "Thank you," he whispered. Not just a polite phrase. Not a hollow line. But a truth. "Thank you for letting it be ours." Pause. Not just mine. Those words settled in the space between us. Heavy with meaning. Because ours meant something different. Something new. Something that hadn't existed before tonight. It meant trust. It meant vulnerability. It meant permission to hold space for each other's desires, without fear or judgment. And in that stillness, I realized something profound. I didn't feel shame. I didn't feel regret. I didn't feel broken or lost or guilty. I felt expanded. Like I'd stepped through a door I hadn't even known I'd locked. A door to a part of myself I thought I'd left behind. Or worse, forgotten. But it was still there. Waiting patiently. Waiting for me to be brave enough to turn the handle again. And in this moment, wrapped in the quiet glow of candlelight and soft breaths, I knew I was ready. Ready to face the parts of myself I'd hidden away. Ready to embrace the messy, beautiful complexity of desire. Ready to rewrite the story I thought I had to live. Because sometimes, the most courageous thing you can do is say yes. Yes to yourself. Yes to the unknown. Yes to the possibilities that live just beyond fear. And if you're listening now, if you've ever felt the weight of a moment you couldn't take back, or a secret you never dared share, know this: you're not alone. And sometimes, the hardest doors lead to the most unexpected freedom. Afterwards, we didn't rush to move. No one said a word at first. No need. The silence wasn't empty. It was full. Full of all the things we hadn't said. Full of all the feelings swirling beneath the surface. And now, somehow, safely held between us. She rested her head lightly on my shoulder. It was a small gesture, but it felt like a homecoming. His hand found mine, fingers intertwining slowly, naturally. I could feel the steady beat of his heart through his palm. A quiet reminder that he was here. That we were here. He leaned in, his voice just a breath. "Thank you." Simple words, but heavy with meaning. For letting it be ours. A pause. Not just mine. Those words filled the room with something warm. Something I hadn't expected to feel after everything that had happened. It wasn't guilt. It wasn't shame. It was something much more fragile. And much more powerful. I realized in that stillness that I didn't feel broken. I didn't feel lost. I didn't feel small. I felt expanded. Like I had stepped through a door I hadn't even known I'd locked. A door that opened onto a part of myself I thought was gone forever. The part that believed in possibility. The part that trusted in connection. The part that said, yes, I'm still here. I shifted slightly and felt their presence like a steady pulse against my skin. And in that moment, nothing else mattered. No past mistakes. No future fears. Just this. The quiet peace of being fully seen, fully accepted, and fully alive. I breathed it in, slow and deep, letting the feeling settle in every corner of my being. Because sometimes, the most unexpected moments bring the greatest clarity. And sometimes, the hardest choices lead us home. Before we go, remember to subscribe to Sheila Heart Tales for more stories that explore the depths of the heart and the complexity of desire. If this story moved you, please share your thoughts in the comments, because your voice matters here. We all have desires we keep hidden. Not because they're wrong. Not because they make us bad people. But because sometimes they feel too big. Too raw. Too vulnerable. Too much to say out loud. Sometimes, the weight of those wishes feels like something to carry alone. But what if it didn't have to be that way? What if the most powerful moments in our lives happen when we stop hiding from ourselves? When we dare to step into that space of uncertainty? Not with shame or fear, but with curiosity and courage? Have you ever surprised yourself with what you wanted? Maybe it was a feeling. Maybe it was a choice you never thought you'd make. And when you finally let it happen, how did it feel? Was it terrifying? Was it freeing? Was it something you'd never forget? Because that's what life is. A series of moments where we decide whether to close the door or walk through it. And I'm here to tell you, you don't have to do it alone. If this story touched something deep inside you, if it made you think or feel or remember, please subscribe to Sheila Heart Tales. Join this community where we talk about the things no one else will say, where your story matters just as much as mine. And if you feel ready, share your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about the unspoken. Because sometimes, the most healing thing we can do is simply say it out loud.